The twin suns of Veralia Prime hung low over the horizon, turning the sky into a river of gold and silver. It was a world of beauty and tension, where two great civilizations, the Aelari Empire and the United Human Fleet, tried to build peace after years of misunderstanding. On this day, their leaders had gathered inside the Crystal Hall of Harmony, a palace built from living stone that shimmered like glass. It was meant to be a symbol of hope, the first step toward trust between the humans and the Aelari. Among the guards standing along the shining walls was Lieutenant Marcus Hale, a young human soldier from Earth. His uniform was plain compared to the jeweled armor of the Aelari guards, but his eyes were sharp and calm. He was not there for glory. He was simply assigned as a security escort for the Peace Summit. To him, this was just another duty. The Aelari fascinated him. They were tall, elegant beings with crystal-bright eyes and hair that glowed faintly under light. Their movements were graceful, every step filled with ancient dignity. But beneath their beauty was pride, the kind that came from thousands of years of empire. Marcus had heard the whispers among them. To many Aelari nobles, humans were seen as impulsive, rough, and too new to the stars, yet others admired humanity's courage and adaptability. At the heart of the hall stood Princess Sarai, the only daughter of the Aelari High Empress. She was young but carried herself with calm wisdom. Her silvery hair flowed like starlight, and her golden eyes studied every visitor with a quiet curiosity. She had been one of the strongest voices for peace, believing that humans and Aelari could learn from each other. The summit began peacefully. The Aelari spoke in their musical language, and the human translators whispered into Marcus's earpiece. Words of hope filled the air. Every sentence seemed to move the crowd closer to harmony. Marcus stood still, scanning the room, his mind alert. Years of training had taught him to look for patterns, small details that felt out of place. Then suddenly he noticed one. At the edge of the room, a figure in a servant's robe was moving too carefully. The hands were tense, not graceful. The stride was too short, the head too low. Marcus's instinct screamed that something was wrong. The figure reached beneath the robe and light flashed. A narrow energy blade ignited, humming like a living serpent. Before the Aelari guards could react, the assassin lunged toward the royal platform. The blade aimed straight at Princess Sarai's heart. Marcus did not think. Training, instinct, and humanity's fierce protective nature moved him faster than reason. He threw himself forward, crossing the marble floor in seconds. The blade struck, but not where it was meant to. A burst of blue light filled the hall as the weapon pierced Marcus's armor. Pain shot through his body, bright and blinding. He staggered but stayed between the assassin and the princess, his arms spread as if to block the whole world. The Aelari guards finally reacted. They tackled the attacker to the ground, the hum of the energy blade silenced. The room erupted into chaos, shouts in alien tones echoing boots, the high hiss of the hall security drones activating. Marcus collapsed to one knee, gasping. His vision blurred, and all he saw was the princess's face, shocked, pale and trembling. She rushed to him, kneeling beside the wounded human. "Why?" she whispered in a voice filled with disbelief. "Why would you do that?" Marcus tried to smile, though his lips were pale. "Just doing my duty, ma'am," he managed to say. His voice was weak but steady. "Couldn't let anyone die. Not on my watch." The Aelari healers surrounded them, glowing crystals in their hands. Their energy flowed into his wound, slowing the bleeding. But Marcus was already slipping into unconsciousness. The last thing he saw was Sarai's golden eyes filled with something strange, a mix of fear, confusion, and awe. When Marcus awoke, everything felt soft and unreal. The air around him shimmered faintly, and the bed beneath him pulsed with warmth. He realized he was no longer in the crystal hall. The room looked alien, walls of living crystal, furniture grown from silver vines, and faint music humming through the air. His armor was gone, replaced by soft, light fabric that seemed to adjust to his breathing. His chest burned faintly, but there was no pain, only a dull ache, like a memory of the wound. He blinked, trying to sit up, but a calm voice stopped him. "Please don't move yet, Lieutenant Hale." It was Princess Sarai. She stood near the bed, her long gown shining like moonlight. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were still clouded by emotion. Marcus slowly sat up, careful not to disturb the strange medical vines connected to his chest. Where am I? In the royal healing chamber, she said softly. Our healers worked through the night to save you. You were close to death, he nodded weakly. Guess I got lucky. She tilted her head. No, you were brave, Marcus shrugged. Just did what anyone would, but her golden eyes hardened as if she didn't agree. No, Lieutenant. Many saw the blade. None moved. Only you did. Silence filled the room. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had always believed that protecting others was his duty, not something to be praised for. But among the Aelari, such selfless acts were almost unheard of. Sarai stepped closer, holding something in her hand, a small crystal pendant glowing faintly blue. This, she said, is the symbol of the life bond. Among my people, when one saves the life of another, especially one of royal blood, a sacred bond is formed. It is called the life debt. It means that my life now belongs to you until the debt is repaid. Marcus frowned. Belongs to me? That's not necessary. I don't need— It is not a choice, she interrupted gently. It is law. It is tradition. Until the bond is resolved, my honor and my destiny are tied to yours. He tried to protest, but she placed the crystal on his chest. It glowed softly, merging its light with the healing vines. A warm energy spread through him, stronger than any medicine he'd ever felt. You saved my life, she whispered. Now I must save yours, and honor what was done. Over the next few hours, the room was visited by many Aelari officials, advisors, guards, even healers, all bowing deeply to Marcus. It made him uncomfortable. He had never been treated with such reverence. Back in the human fleet, he was just one of many soldiers. Here he was something else, a symbol, perhaps even a challenge to their old ways. Later that evening, when the visitors left, Princess Sarai remained by his side. She studied him with quiet curiosity. Your people? She asked softly. You risk yourselves for others often? Marcus thought for a moment. We try to, he said. Not all the time, but when it matters, yeah, we help each other. That is rare among my kind, she admitted. Our traditions teach that each life must protect its own purpose first. Sacrifice is seen as weakness, he smiled faintly. Maybe, but sometimes weakness is what makes us strong. Her eyes softened, the golden glow fading to gentle amber. I do not understand humans, she said, almost to herself. You act without thought of reward. You face death without fear. You give without asking. Marcus looked away. We're not that different. Maybe just a little stubborn. A quiet laugh escaped her lips, and the first he had heard from her. Then perhaps stubbornness saved me. The chamber lights dimmed, and she stood. Rest, Lieutenant Hale. Tomorrow you will be presented to the High Council. They will decide how this life debt shall be fulfilled. He blinked in surprise. Council? That sounds serious. It is, she said softly. For my people it is sacred. You have changed the path of the royal bloodline. Nothing will be the same. As she turned to leave, Marcus called out quietly. I didn't mean to change anything. She paused at the doorway. Then you have already done more than most, Marcus Hale. Because sometimes the greatest change begins without intention. When she left, the room grew silent again. Marcus lay back, staring at the ceiling made of shifting light. He tried to understand what had happened, how a simple moment of instinct had turned into a bond between worlds. Outside the chamber, the twin sons of Virelia rose again, painting the palace in gold. Somewhere beyond those walls, rumors were already spreading. A human soldier had saved the life of the alien princess, and in doing so, he had unknowingly tied his fate to the stars. The next morning came with the soft hum of crystal birds outside the palace. Light poured through the tall glass-like walls of the healing chamber, turning everything into shades of silver and gold. Lieutenant Marcus Hale sat up slowly, still weak but healing faster than he expected. The wound on his chest had closed almost completely, leaving only a faint scar that pulsed with soft blue light from the Aelari medicine. He looked around. The room was still strange to him. Everything was alive in some way. The walls shifted gently like breathing, and the bed seemed to adjust to his posture without any buttons or wires. The air was warm and smelled faintly like rain. When the door opened, Princess Sarai entered, followed by 2 attendants. She looked calm and elegant as always, but her eyes showed signs of sleeplessness. She had been worried. Marcus could see it. You're awake, she said softly. Marcus nodded. I guess your healers are better than ours. I feel almost fine. Sarai smiled faintly. They are among the best in the Empire. But your recovery is still remarkable. Human strength surprises us again. Marcus gave a light laugh. We're good at surviving. It's kind of our thing. The attendants bowed deeply to him before leaving. Marcus still wasn't used to that. Back home, he was just another soldier. Here, the entire royal household treated him like someone important, almost sacred. Sarai stepped closer. Today, the High Council of Aelari has requested your presence. They will discuss the terms of the life debt. Marcus frowned. I still don't understand that part. I saved you, yes, but that doesn't mean you owe me anything. It was just the right thing to do. Her golden eyes softened, but her tone stayed formal. Among humans, perhaps that is enough. But among my people, saving a royal life binds destinies together. It cannot be ignored. It is not about owing. It is about balance. Balance? Marcus asked. Yes, she said. Life is sacred. When one life is saved by another, that energy must return in some form. Otherwise, the bond remains incomplete, and the one saved carries a mark of dishonor until the debt is fulfilled. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. So if I understand correctly, you have to repay me somehow, or your people think your honor is damaged? Correct, she said. The life debt means your safety and well-being now come before mine. I am sworn by our laws to protect and assist you until the bond is resolved. Marcus blinked. Wait, protect me? You're a princess. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Sarai looked at him calmly. Tradition does not care for rank. It only follows the rule of life. I owe you mine. For a moment, neither spoke. Marcus didn't know whether to laugh or feel nervous. He respected their culture, but this was something completely new to him. He didn't want to be treated like some kind of savior. Later that morning, 2 guards arrived to escort him to the council chamber. The path led through long corridors filled with glowing plants and tall windows that showed the golden city beyond. Virelia's capital stretched across crystal plains, full of floating towers and shimmering bridges. The people below were elegant and silent, watching the sky as if it carried secrets. As Marcus walked beside Sarai, he noticed how everyone bowed to her, but also glanced curiously at him. Some even whispered. The story had already spread. A human soldier saved the princess of the stars. When they reached the council hall, Marcus was stunned. The chamber was enormous, shaped like a spiral shell, and the ceiling was open to the twin suns. 12 council members stood on platforms that glowed softly under their feet. Each wore robes of deep blue and gold, symbolizing wisdom and justice. The High Empress, Sarai's mother, sat at the center. Her presence filled the room like calm light. Her silver hair floated slightly as if moved by unseen wind. Marcus bowed slightly, unsure of the proper greeting. Your Majesty, the Empress inclined her head politely. Lieutenant Marcus Hale of Earth, you have done what no one expected, and you saved the life of my daughter. For that, the Aelari Empire honors you. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Thank you, but I didn't do it for honor. I just reacted. The Empress smiled faintly. That is what makes it remarkable. The eldest council member, a tall male with glowing violet eyes, spoke next. We are gathered to decide how the life debt shall be fulfilled. The bond cannot remain unresolved. Princess Sarai's destiny and your own are now linked. Marcus tried to explain again. With all respect, there's no need for that. I don't want anything. I just want peace between our people. The council murmured among themselves. Some looked impressed. Others displeased. Another member spoke sharply. You speak with humility, human, but our customs are not so easily ignored. The princess cannot move forward in her duties until the debt is balanced. Marcus frowned. So what are my choices? Sarai glanced at him with quiet worry, but the Empress raised her hand. Tradition offers 3 paths, she said. First, the gift of life. You may request any reward, any resource, or any title within reason. It will be granted as repayment. Marcus shook his head. I don't need that. Second, the Empress continued, the release of honor. The princess would swear eternal service to you until she believes the balance is restored. That sounds worse, he muttered under his breath. And third, she said softly, the merging of fates, a bond deeper than words. A vow that unites both lives in purpose. It is rarely chosen. In our history, it has happened only twice. The room grew silent. The council waited for his answer. Marcus's mind raced. He didn't understand their customs well enough to make such a decision. Finally, he said, I don't want any reward or service. I just want to help keep the peace we started. If this bond means something, maybe it can stand for cooperation between our people." There was a long pause. Then the Empress nodded slowly. "A wise answer, Lieutenant Hale. Perhaps the bond can indeed become a bridge, not a chain." After the council dismissed them, Sarai walked beside Marcus through the palace gardens. Crystal flowers bloomed in every color, glowing softly like stars. The air carried the sound of distant waterfalls. She looked thoughtful. "You could have asked for anything, even power. Why didn't you?" He smiled gently. "Because that's not what matters. I didn't save you to gain something. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Back on Earth, we call it human decency." Sarai nodded slowly. "Our people have forgotten such simplicity. Every act is measured by worth and balance. Perhaps that is why your action confuses us." Marcus laughed lightly. "Humans confuse everyone, I think." She looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "Maybe that's why the stars sent you here." They walked in silence for a while, passing through trees made of glass. For the first time, Marcus felt a strange connection to this world. It was beautiful, but also lonely. Everything seemed perfect, yet distant. Later in the evening, Marcus sat on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. He thought about his home, the blue oceans, the winds, the noise of Earth. He missed it, but something inside him told him that his story here was far from over. Princess Sarai joined him quietly. "Lieutenant," she said softly, "the people are talking. Some call you the protector of the stars. Others think the bond is a mistake." He looked at her with calm eyes. "People always talk. What do you think?" She hesitated before answering. "I think you are different. You act without fear and you speak without pride. That is rare here." "Maybe I'm just stubborn," he said, smiling. Sarai looked out at the city lights. "In my world, that kind of stubbornness could change everything." The next day, Marcus was given permission to walk freely within the royal grounds. Everywhere he went, Elari citizens bowed respectfully. Some brought gifts of light and crystal, small tokens of gratitude, but not everyone was pleased. He noticed cold stares from a few nobles. Whispered words followed him in the corridors. "The human should not have interfered. This bond will weaken our rule. It is dangerous to honor him so highly." Marcus ignored them. He had faced worse looks before, on Earth during war. People feared what they didn't understand. At sunset, he returned to his chamber. Sarai was waiting, standing near the window. The golden light framed her silhouette. "There are those who wish to see the bond broken," she said quietly. "They believe your presence here will change the Empire." Marcus sighed. "Maybe it will. Change isn't always bad." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Perhaps it is destiny then." Outside, the stars began to appear, bright and endless. Marcus felt a quiet strength growing inside him. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. His one act of bravery had tied his fate to something far greater than himself. And somewhere deep within the palace, the ancient life-debt crystal pulsed softly, as if it too sensed that this was only the beginning of a story that would shake two worlds. Days passed quietly in the shining palace of ViewershipPrime. Lieutenant Marcus Hale had started to recover not only from his wounds, but also from the confusion of his new reality. What began as a single act of courage had now turned into a connection between two civilizations, and between two people who could not have been more different. The Elari healers said his strength was returning faster than expected. Their medicine had worked miracles, and Marcus could now walk freely. The more he explored the palace, the more he began to understand that he was living in a world unlike anything he had imagined. The Elari capital was breathtaking. Floating towers reached into the sky like crystal spears, and bridges of light connected the city's many layers. The streets were filled with silent, graceful beings, all dressed in robes that shimmered with soft colors. The air was clear and full of gentle music produced by energy currents. Marcus had seen many planets during his service with the United Human Fleet, but nothing like this. The Elari didn't just build their cities, and they grew them. Every building was alive, humming faintly as if it could breathe. Yet for all its beauty, there was something quiet and cold about this world. Everything followed order, tradition, and calm perfection. There was no laughter in the streets, no chaos, no human warmth. That was what made Princess Sarai so unusual. Since the life debt, Sarai had chosen to stay close to Marcus. Wherever he went, she often appeared soon after, walking silently beside him. Sometimes she asked questions about Earth. Sometimes she simply listened to his stories. One afternoon they walked through the Garden of Glass Winds, a wide courtyard filled with trees that looked like they were made of light. The leaves moved gently, producing soft chimes when the breeze touched them. "Your world," Sarai said, her voice calm but curious. "You said there are oceans everywhere?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, blue water as far as you can see. Some people live near the sea their whole lives. I grew up near one, actually. What does it feel like?" He thought for a moment. "Alive," he said finally. "The sea breathes like the world itself. It's always moving, always changing. You can't control it, but you can learn to sail it." Sarai seemed to think deeply about that. "Our oceans are silent now. They were changed by war long ago. The waves do not sing anymore." Marcus looked at her with gentle eyes. "Then maybe one day they will again?" For a while they walked in silence. Then Sarai asked another question. "On Earth, you said people risk themselves for others, even strangers. Why?" He shrugged lightly. "Because that's who we are. We care about others, even when it doesn't make sense. It's part of being human." She looked at him thoughtfully. "To the Alari, that seems impossible. Our history taught us to value survival and wisdom. Emotion was seen as dangerous." Marcus smiled faintly. "Sometimes emotion is dangerous, but it's also what makes life worth living." Sarai's golden eyes softened. "Perhaps that is why your people have come so far, even though you are young among the stars." As the days passed, the bond between Marcus and Sarai became more than duty. It became understanding. They shared meals, stories, and laughter, something the palace hadn't heard in years, but not everyone approved. Rumors spread quickly through the royal halls. Some nobles whispered that the princess had broken decorum by spending time with a human. Others said the life debt was a mistake that would bring dishonor. One evening, Marcus overheard two guards speaking outside the training arena. "The human walks beside her again," one said. "He has no right to be near the royal line." "Careful," the other replied. "The Empress herself allowed it." "But still, his presence changes her. She laughs more. She questions our ways." Marcus quietly walked away, pretending not to have heard, but inside he felt the weight of every word. He didn't want to cause trouble. He just wanted peace, and to prove that humans and Alari could understand each other. One morning, Sarai invited Marcus to join her on a diplomatic journey to Cryon Moon, one of the Empire's distant colonies. The moon was rich in minerals but home to unrest. Pirates had been attacking trade ships, and Sarai hoped to bring peace through negotiation. Marcus agreed immediately. "If you're going, I'm going," he said with a grin. "You might need someone to jump in front of another blade." Sarai smiled softly. "Let us hope it never comes to that again." They traveled aboard a royal cruiser, a ship of pure light and crystal, guided by energy currents rather than engines. As it left the planet's orbit, Marcus stood at the viewing deck, staring at the stars. He felt a sense of wonder every time he looked into space. To him, the stars weren't just lights, they were endless possibilities. Sarai joined him quietly. "You look at the stars as if they are calling to you," she said. "They are," he replied. "Humans always look up. It reminds us that there's more out there. More to learn, more to do," she nodded, "and more to protect." When they arrived at Cryon Moon, things didn't go as smoothly as hoped. The colony's leaders were nervous, and whispers of another pirate attack had everyone on edge. Marcus noticed that the local guards were disorganized, their patrols slow and scattered. During the negotiations, the warning alarm suddenly blared through the colony base. A swarm of small ships appeared in orbit, pirates armed and fast. Chaos broke out. The Alari guards panicked, rushing to defend the landing platforms. The royal cruiser was still docked, but its defense systems were not yet active. Sarai looked alarmed but calm. "They will aim for the command tower," she said. "That's where we must go," Marcus nodded. "Then we'd better move." They ran through the corridors as explosions echoed outside. The sky above the glass dome turned red with laser fire. A group of frightened civilians tried to hide, and Marcus stopped to help them into a safety shelter before continuing. When they reached the command center, a pirate craft had already broken through the shield barrier. Armed raiders stormed inside, shouting in a strange language. The Alari guards hesitated, unused to direct battle. Marcus grabbed a defensive shield from a fallen guard. "Stay behind me," he called. Sarai drew a long, glowing staff. the weapon of her royal training, and stood beside him instead of hiding. Together, they faced the attackers. Marcus blocked incoming fire with the shield while Sarai struck with precise, graceful movements. Despite the chaos, they moved in harmony, a soldier and a princess fighting side by side. When the last pirate fell unconscious, the guards finally regained control. The alarm slowly faded. Marcus exhaled, leaning against the wall. "Guess I'm making a habit of saving royal lives." Sarai gave a soft laugh. "And I, it seems, am learning how to fight for mine." News of their teamwork spread faster than light. On their return to Virelia, the people whispered not of scandal but of hope. For the first time, many Elari saw a human not as reckless but as honorable. However, not everyone was pleased. In the council chambers, a few nobles argued that the princess's growing bond with the human soldier threatened the old ways. One of them, Lord Varen, spoke coldly. "If this continues, the life debt will turn into something else, something that could blur our traditions forever." The Empress listened quietly, saying nothing. But her expression was thoughtful. Deep down, she too wondered what this strange connection between human and Elari might become. That night, Marcus stood on the palace balcony again. The twin moons of Virelia shone above him. He thought of Earth, of the blue oceans and open skies. Then he thought of Sarai, the princess who had begun to see the world differently because of one small act of courage. She joined him soon after, her soft robes rustling in the evening wind. "Another day of peace restored," she said quietly. "Let's hope it lasts," he replied. She looked at him for a long moment. "When you stood before that blade, you did not only save my life. You changed the way I see the stars. I used to think destiny was fixed, written in honor and rule. But now I see it as shaped by choice, by heart." Marcus smiled gently. "That's the human way. We don't believe in destiny, we make it." The silence between them was peaceful. The lights of the city shimmered below like scattered stars. And for the first time, Sarai reached out her hand, not as royalty, but as a friend. Marcus hesitated, then took it, above them. The sky stretched endlessly, two worlds slowly learning to walk together under the same stars. But far beyond the horizon, unseen forces stirred. The act that had bound human and Elari lives was now echoing through empires, awakening both hope and fear. The true weight of the life debt was only beginning to reveal itself. The hall of the Elari High Council was a place of echoing voices and old stone. The walls shimmered with living light, patterns flowing like water. It was here that the fate of worlds had often been decided. And now, the fate of one human soldier and one alien princess would be judged. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at the center, his posture straight but his heart uneasy. On either side of him, long rows of alien nobles sat on high platforms, their faces hidden behind shimmering veils of crystal. Their golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim chamber. At the far end of the hall stood Princess Sarai, dressed in ceremonial robes of soft silver. Her crown rested lightly on her head, but her expression was firm. The High Speaker, an ancient being whose long tendrils shimmered with blue light, raised a slender hand. "The matter before us," he declared, "is of the life debt. The human soldier Marcus Hale saved the life of our princess. By our oldest traditions, that debt must be resolved, one way or another." Marcus swallowed. He wanted to speak, to tell them there was no debt at all, that he didn't save Sarai for honor or reward. He did it because it was right. But this was not his world. These people lived by rules older than human civilization itself. Sarai stepped forward. Her voice was clear, calm, and yet there was warmth beneath it. "According to our law," she said, "the one who owes the life debt may repay it by giving a gift of equal value. But how does one repay a life? What equals the worth of another's courage?" Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The High Speaker nodded. "The life debt can also be fulfilled by merging paths, binding the lives of both parties until balance is found." Marcus frowned slightly. "Merging paths? What does that mean?" he whispered. Sarai turned her eyes to him. "It means our destinies would be joined," she said softly. "We would walk as one, partners in duty, purpose, and honor, until the stars themselves forget our bond." Marcus blinked. "That sounds permanent." Sarai gave a faint smile. "It is." Before Marcus could speak again, a voice from the crowd broke through. It was Lord Varn, one of the most powerful nobles in the Empire, tall, proud, and cold-eyed. "This is unacceptable," he said sharply. "A princess cannot bind herself to a lesser species. The life debt must end. Give the human gold a ship or a title and let him return to his world." Many nobles nodded in agreement. The chamber buzzed with voices, and some angry, some fearful. Marcus took a breath. "I don't want gold," he said. "And I don't want a title. I never asked for any of this. I just wanted to help." But his words, simple and honest, carried weight. Even the high speaker seemed to pause. Sarai looked at Marcus, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "You do not understand, Marcus," she said. "To walk away without repayment would dishonor me. And you. The law is not about ownership. It is about balance. You gave me life. Now I must give something of equal meaning." "I didn't give you life," Marcus said quietly. "You already had that. I just made sure you kept it." A faint, sad smile touched her lips. "And that is why this matters." The council fell silent again. The high speaker's deep voice broke through the tension. "The decision will be made at the trial of honor," he said. "At dawn tomorrow, you both will face the circle of truth. The trial will test your hearts, not your weapons. If your bond is false, it will break. If it is true, it will endure. Then the law shall decide." That night, Marcus sat alone in the palace gardens. The air was cool, the stars bright. The two moons hung above him, one pale blue, the other golden, like the eyes of the Aelari themselves. He thought about everything that had happened. When he first came to this world, he was just a soldier, following orders, doing his job. Now he stood between empires and ancient laws. He heard soft footsteps behind him. Sarai appeared, her robes flowing like silver mist. "You should rest," she said gently. "Tomorrow will not be easy." Marcus gave a tired laugh. "I've faced battlefields and storms. I think I'll survive one more day of questions." She sat beside him on the smooth stone bench. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sarai said quietly, "Do you regret saving me?" Marcus looked at her in surprise. "Of course not. I'd do it again, even knowing what it would cause," she asked. He smiled faintly. "I didn't do it for a reason. I just saw someone in danger and moved. That's all." Sarai lowered her gaze. "Among my people, no one acts without reason. Every choice is weighed, measured. But you act from the heart. It frightens them and inspires them." Marcus looked at her, then up at the twin moons. "Maybe both our worlds could use a bit of the other's way." She smiled softly. And for a moment, the tension of the coming trial seemed to fade. At dawn, the trial of honor began. The Circle of Truth was an ancient arena carved into the heart of a mountain. The walls glowed with living light, and a soft hum filled the air. Sarai and Marcus stepped into the center, surrounded by hundreds of nobles and guards. The high speaker raised his staff. "The trial shall begin. Each must face the truth within themselves. Only then will the life debt find its path." A beam of light descended, surrounding them. The air shimmered. Marcus felt a strange warmth spreading through him, and suddenly he was not in the arena anymore. He stood in a dreamlike space, a world made of light and memory. Before him appeared images of his past, the battlefield on Earth, the friends he lost, the missions he survived. He saw himself again and again running into danger, saving others, never thinking twice. Then he heard Sarai's voice echo softly, "Why do you fight, human?" Marcus looked around. "Because someone has to," he said, "even when it costs you." He nodded. Especially then, the light shifted. Now Sarai stood before him, surrounded by her own memories. Her people bowing, her council arguing, her isolation behind golden walls. "Why do you serve?" Marcus asked gently. She hesitated. "Because duty demands it. Because honor defines who I am." "But is it what you want?" She looked down. For the first time, she seemed uncertain. I never asked what I wanted. I only knew what was expected." The light grew brighter, swirling around them both. Their worlds, his of struggle, hers of duty, began to overlap. A voice filled the space, deep and ancient. "Truth has been spoken. The bond between heart and honor stands equal. The life debt is not one to be ended. It is one to be shared." The vision faded. Marcus blinked and found himself back in the arena. The nobles were silent. Sarai stood beside him, her hand glowing faintly where it rested over her heart. The High Speaker lowered his staff. "The Circle has spoken," he said. "The bond shall remain, not as debt but as partnership." Gasps filled the chamber. Lord Varn stepped forward, his face pale with anger. "This is a mockery of our traditions," he shouted. "A human cannot be bound to our royal line." But before he could say more, a rumble shook the ground. Outside, a blast echoed. An explosion near the palace gates. Alarms rang out, guards rushed in shouting, "Attackers!" The extremist faction. Marcus's instincts took over. "Sarai, stay behind me," he said, pulling her toward cover, but Sarai shook her head. "No, not this time." She drew a slender energy staff from her robes, its edges glowing with golden light. "We fight together." Side by side they moved through the chaos. Marcus disarmed one attacker with swift precision, while Sarai used graceful strikes to protect her guards. Their movements blended, his instinct and her discipline forming perfect balance. When the last of the attackers fell and silence returned, the council hall filled with stunned faces, Sarai raised her staff high. "This is what it means to merge paths," she said clearly. "Human courage and Aelari honor, and not divided but united." The nobles bowed their heads slowly. Even Lord Varn could not speak. The High Speaker's voice echoed once more. "Let it be written. From this day forward, the life debt of the Princess Sarai and Lieutenant Marcus Hale shall stand as a symbol of unity. The bond between their worlds begins here." Marcus exhaled, finally lowering his weapon. Sarai turned to him, her eyes soft but proud. "You see," she said quietly. "Not all traditions must end. Some can grow." He smiled faintly. "Guess that means we passed the trial." Sarai nodded. "More than that, Marcus. We've changed the meaning of honor itself." And as the sun rose above the shining city, its light touched the two of them, a human soldier and an alien princess, standing together at the dawn of something new. The twin suns of Virelia Prime rose slowly over the crystal city, painting the towers and bridges in gold and amber. Life returned to the streets after the chaos of the last attack. Citizens moved carefully but with a new sense of hope. The news of the trial's outcome and the heroic defense of the colony had spread quickly. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out over the city. Beside him, Princess Sarai leaned lightly on the railing, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. The bond of the life debt, now confirmed by the High Council and strengthened by their joint heroism, had transformed both of them. What began as duty had become trust, understanding, and a rare kind of friendship, maybe even something more. Marcus felt a strange mix of pride and humility. On Earth, he had fought many battles, saved many lives, but none of them had carried the weight of what he had done here. Here, one act of courage had changed the future of a species. "Do you ever wonder," Sarai said softly, "what our people will say when they fully understand the bond between us?" Marcus smiled. "They'll either call me crazy or lucky. Probably both." Sarai chuckled, a sound like wind through crystal leaves. "Lucky, yes, but also brave. You didn't think about reward. You didn't hesitate. You acted because it was right. And that's what humans do," Marcus replied. "Some of us, anyway." They stood in silence for a while, letting the calm of the morning sink in. The palace grounds were peaceful, but Marcus knew the real work was just beginning. Over the next few weeks, Marcus began to experience life among the Aelari in ways he had never imagined. He walked through their cities, spoke with scholars, and observed their technology, which blended crystal energy and natural forces in ways humans had never seen. Sarai accompanied him almost everywhere, guiding him through customs, traditions, and diplomacy. The two became a visible symbol of cooperation between humans and the Aelari. Where once humans were regarded as outsiders, now they were seen as allies capable of courage, honor, and wisdom. At the central plaza, children gathered to watch Marcus demonstrate simple human techniques of survival and training. Sarai explained to them how he had saved her life, teaching the lesson that bravery was not just for soldiers, but for anyone willing to stand for what was right. Some nobles still whispered in private, unsure how to feel about the princess walking openly with a human. But even they could not ignore the results. Marcus and Sarai had saved the colony, strengthened the life debt, and earned the respect of many skeptical Aelari. One day, a messenger arrived with urgent news. Another faction, opposed to the growing alliance of humans and Aelari, had plotted to disrupt trade with Virelia Prime's outlying colonies. Ships carrying essential supplies were under threat. Marcus frowned. Looks like we're not done yet. Sarai's expression was calm but determined. Then we will go together as we did before. The bond is not only ceremonial, it carries responsibility. They traveled aboard the royal cruiser once again, faster and smoother than before. Marcus noticed the ship's energy lines pulsing brighter when they neared the conflict zone. It seemed almost alive, as if responding to their purpose. When they arrived, the situation was tense. Small pirate crafts had surrounded the supply convoy, firing sporadically. The local Aelari defense forces were struggling. Marcus jumped into action, organizing human and Aelari defenders together. Using both human tactical instinct and Sarai's command strategies, they coordinated a defense that was faster and smarter than the pirates expected. Sarai led the Aelari strike team with precision. Marcus directed humans alongside them, blending two very different fighting styles into one seamless effort. When the last pirate craft was disabled and captured, the convoy was safe. Marcus looked at Sarai and she smiled faintly. "You see," she said softly, "this is why the life debt matters. It is not just tradition, it is action." "It is living the bond," Marcus nodded, "and I think our worlds are learning something new from each other." Back on Virelia Prime, celebrations were held. Not for war, not for victory over enemies, but for courage, cooperation, and unity. Marcus was no longer a mere human soldier. He was a symbol of hope, the living proof that even in a world ruled by rigid tradition, compassion and courage could change everything. Sarai's people began to look at humans differently. No longer were they outsiders, unpredictable and reckless. They were brave, honorable, and willing to act for the greater good. Marcus became a teacher of sorts, sharing human knowledge, tactics, and philosophy with those who wished to learn. The bond between him and Sarai remained strong, a guiding light for both worlds. Some nobles had initially resisted, but even they began to see the value of unity. One quiet evening, Marcus and Sarai stood together on the balcony of the palace. The twin moons rose above the city, casting their silver and gold light across the streets below. "You've changed more than just my world," Sarai said softly. "You've changed the Empire. You've shown that courage and honor can be measured not just by bloodlines or tradition, but by the heart." Marcus looked at her, feeling the weight and warmth of the words. "And you've changed me. I came here as a soldier. Now I understand what it means to protect not just one life, but many, to fight for something bigger than myself." Sarai reached out and lightly touched his hand. "We are stronger together. That is the true meaning of the life debt." He squeezed her hand gently. "Then let it be more than debt. Let it be promise. Between us and between our worlds," Sarai smiled, a quiet light in her golden eyes. "A promise," she said. In the weeks that followed, Marcus and Sarai continued their work. They traveled between planets, helped negotiate peace, and taught others the lessons they had learned. Everywhere they went, people spoke of the human soldier and the alien princess, and how a single act of courage had begun to unite two civilizations. The story of that moment, Marcus leaping in front of the blade to save Sarai, became legend. Children whispered it to each other in the crystal halls. Scholars wrote of it in new histories, and everywhere it inspired people to act with courage and kindness, knowing that one small choice could change the course of the stars. For Marcus, the journey had been unexpected. He had gone from a simple soldier to a symbol, from a stranger on a distant planet to a bridge between worlds. But he never forgot why he acted that day. It was never about honor or reward. It was about life, about heart. And for Sarai, the life debt had become something she never expected. Not a burden, not a chain, but a guiding light. Through Marcus, she saw that true leadership meant courage, empathy, and partnership. She learned that traditions could evolve, that laws could bend when hearts were true. Together they walked a new path, one that combined the best of humanity and Aelari wisdom. They trained, they taught, and they inspired. Their bond became an example for generations to come, a promise that the future could be brighter when courage met compassion. Years later, the twin suns of Virelia Prime rose over the city once again. Marcus stood beside Sarai, now fully a part of her world. Together they looked out over the crystal spires and bridges, thinking of all they had accomplished. "Do you ever think," Marcus asked softly, "that one moment can change everything?" Sarai nodded, her golden eyes reflecting the rising suns. "I know it can, and that moment was you." Marcus smiled, humbled. Then let's make sure we honor it. Not just by surviving, but by teaching others to care, to act, to live with courage. Sarai's hand found his again. We will. Together. And so, the human soldier and the alien princess stood side by side, looking to the horizon, knowing that their lives, once strangers, now bound by choice, courage, and promise, had created a new legacy. A legacy of hope. A legacy of courage. A legacy of two worlds walking as one. Somewhere beyond the stars, the story of Marcus Hale and Princess Sarai traveled across galaxies, a tale of bravery, compassion, and the unbreakable bond that begins with a single act of selfless courage. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter that night, twin lights of promise and unity reflecting the courage of a human heart and the honor of an alien princess. And so, the legend endured, not just as history but as a reminder that one person, one choice, one act of courage could change the fate of worlds.